This is Gene Monterestelli, and welcome to the Tapping Q&A podcast, recorded live to tape from Williamsburg in Brooklyn. This is episode 242, originally aired October 12th, 2016. Hi, everyone. I hope this finds you well wherever you are and whatever time of day you're getting a chance to listen to this. Thanks for spending a little time with me today. Today, we're going to spend some time talking about how we can use EFT and tapping to improve our performance, especially at times when we are struggling or disappointed by past performance not going as well as we would like. Before we jump into that, just a couple of quick housekeeping announcements. First of all, if you haven't done it yet, please download the free 10-part guide on how you can use tapping and EFT to eliminate self-sabotage. Every few days in your inbox, you'll get an audio or a video or some instructions, a tapping script, but little by little, it's going to give you tools to make it easier and easier for you to take action that you want to take. It's absolutely free. And the reason why you get a part every couple of days is I don't want to give you so much information that none of it's useful because you have too much. So it gives you a couple days to try it out and then add the next tool and then add the next tool. All you need to do is go to tappingqa.com and click on the big blue button to sign up. If you happen to be listening right now in the website, all you need to do is scoot up in the right-hand side in the column there. You'll see a big blue button there as well. You can sign up absolutely free of charge. Secondly, make sure you're checking out the Tapping Q&A podcast archive. Between bonus episodes and full episodes, just like this one, we're well over 300 free audios in the archive. All you need to do is go to tappingqapodcast.com to get access to that entire archive. There are years and years and years of free content just waiting for you to listen to. And if you download the Tapping Q&A app, not only do you have access to all those audios and a bunch of extra bonus stuff, but it's right there on your smartphone. Anytime you want, just go into the search function, type in a topic. It will pull up everything that is related to that. Again, all of that stuff is absolutely free of charge. Finally, last housekeeping announcement is the Tapping Q&A podcast is sponsored by Pain Relief Miracle. Pain Relief Miracle is an all-natural spray that is made for pain and skin conditions. It was created by Jason Laird, who is a Chinese medicine practitioner. And basically, he took the prescription chemically pain relief medicine his mother was prescribed to deal with her arthritis. And he took every single active ingredient, found the natural analog to each one of those ingredients, and created this absolutely amazing spray. It works for blisters. It works for bed sores, scrapes, cuts, bruises, sunburns. I used it all summer for my sunburns. But it also works for joint pains. And the best part is it is all natural. And because it's all natural, not only can you use it, but you can also use it on your pets as well. It is in my medicine cabinet. It should be in your medicine cabinet as well. Jason has set up a special 33% discount just for Tapping Q&A podcast listeners. And when I say that, that's not a joke. Oftentimes you'll hear on podcasters say, just for my listeners, but they use the same ad on every place they sponsor. This is the only place you can get that discount. All you need to do is go to tappingqa.com/pain, or if you look in the show notes, there'll be a link right there. tappingqa.com/pain, 33% off your first order. It is in my medicine cabinet, and it should be in your medicine cabinet as well. Today in the podcast, I have a conversation with my friend Gina Parris, and we talk about performance. Gina spends a good chunk of her time in her practice working with athletes around performance issues. And there's a huge difference sometimes between the way we practice something and then the way we do it when we're trying to execute something. And in a sports setting, it's so easy to measure success and failure because we know exactly what we're trying to do, and oftentimes there is a score. But the lessons that she has learned from working with athletes around performance is something that all of us can use every single day as we try and be successful at the things that we're doing in our own life. So in this conversation, we talk about the reasons why we don't perform as well as we'd like to, and that could be in our relationships, in the work that we do, how we're trying to be healthier, and how we can use tapping to get past those things that are holding us up. So here is my conversation with Gina. So one of the things I find really interesting when I'm working with my clients is the number of times that they get frustrated when they're not living up to their own expectations.
Right.
And sometimes that happens because we have unrealistic expectations. But other times we are properly resourced, we are trained, we are expert, we know what we're doing, we go into a circumstance and it just doesn't work out the way that we want, and we don't perform at the level that we're super capable of. When that is happening, what's your experience in helping clients with this? What's your experience in your own life when you recognize that happening?
Well, the reason that we call that choking, right? And
Yep.
the reason that happens is usually because we attach different meaning to what happens in one scenario than in another scenario. And the classic example is practice versus a game, or regular competition versus championship. Well, if you're talking about an athlete, for us in private, then in our life, it's great to ask, what meaning am I giving this that I'm causing so much extra pressure on myself?
And so when you say, what meaning am I giving this? It's what meaning am I giving to this presentation, this asking the girl out, this whatever it is that I'm doing? What extra meaning are we giving to that moment? And when you ask that, are we saying, like, is it meaning of outcome? Is it who we are? Is it how we fit in the world? What do you mean by meaning in that spot?
I think it almost always goes back to how we view ourselves.
Okay.
So it means I'm stupid, or if I'm rejected, that means I'll fail. My dreams won't come true. And then we can extrapolate that all the way down to I'll be homeless, or I'll never succeed, or I'll just feel horrible. And it will confirm what is one of our two greatest fears that pretty much drives so much behavior. And that first one is, will I be enough? And that second one is, will I be loved? So we so often attach some kind of meaning from this fear-inducing event to how it's going to speak to those two prevailing questions.
And I think it's really interesting that what you're pointing out there is this idea that it's not that we're creating new fears in this circumstance,
right,
but the fact that it's these underlying fears that are very much part about being human is it's showing up in unique ways in these moments. And I guess when we start to look at that, it gives us an opportunity to kind of have a different entry point into going after these problems, because oftentimes, I think when I am struggling as a public speaker, I need to go headlong into this sense of I need to be a better public speaker, and what are my fears around public speaking? And in some cases, this might just be symptomatic of something that is a lot deeper, that just approaching the symptom isn't going to be enough in order for us to be successful.
Oh, absolutely. I just spent the whole week at a copywriting, or weekend at a copywriting a seminar, and before he would get to writing headlines or bullet statements or anything, he said, no, you need to know who you are and what you stand for and own your own story. So you're exactly right. We're thinking if it's a nervousness about public speaking, I need to learn what to do with my hands. I need to learn how to pace properly. And those things definitely do help. Competence does breed confidence, but more so, if you know that in your very presence, in your story, you're communicating something because the listener needs it, not because you need their approval, then it's much easier to thrive under that pressure of being on stage.
Okay, so let's take an example that someone is competent at whatever it is that they have skilled, they have practiced, they know exactly what they're doing. And when it comes time for them to execute in the fashion where they're actually doing it for real, not just in practice, and they're, like you said earlier, choking. If someone shows up to you in that circumstance, what's the process? How do you work with them to get them to a place that they're going to actually execute at the level that they are capable of?
Well, one of the greatest examples is the yips, because it's so mysterious and people think, oh my God, it's a career ender. No one knows how to get to the root of it. So as we get really quiet and we do the deep breathing before we'll tap, I'll ask, what feeling does this give you? If you could really articulate it, what is it? And very often the word is powerless. So our listener can think of any situation that applies to them and think, oh my God, I'm suddenly just powerless. Then the question is, well, let's think back in your life. What was the earliest time that you can remember in your whole life feeling powerless, even if it was a completely unrelated situation? And sometimes, you'll come up with one idea and we'll tap on that. And then they'll suddenly say, oh, I just thought of something. I hadn't even thought about it till now. So you know how we do that. We'll go back and collapse the memories and change the charge or the meaning of that situation. And then we'll tap on the current situation. So it's a couple rounds in the past and a couple rounds in the present and the future. And a lot of times you can feel that shift in energy. It's so beautiful.
After we've kind of dealt with or approached this sense of powerless, what then becomes the next step? Are we thinking about specifically the task at hand? Or are we still focusing on this sense of powerlessness and how we can't take that action?
I'll usually test, if I'll feel a real breakthrough on that memory and it seems significant, then we'll go back and we'll test this feeling, reliving the most recent choking episode or the time tomorrow that you have to put yourself in that situation. And I've had very few experiences where there's still a charge on that current memory. So of course, with some people it's multi-layered, but these are when it's just a real specific performance under this scenario. You know what I mean?
So give me a contrast between a specific this scenario and something that's more general.
Yeah. So I have, if I'm working with an athlete, they're crystal clear on what they need to do. They're going to play tomorrow and they just want to feel free. So we get them to a place of playing with freedom and they're like happy as a clam. They usually come to me. They're used to parents that believe in them and they've got this great life and all of that. And they're just good to go. And it's so fun. And in contrast are people who've had a lot more challenges in their story. And so I was working with a business owner and she had layers of programming really from crazy situations, but people who meant well in their world that built really disempowering beliefs. And so we'll talk about in her case, her choking situation was running the business, which just took so much bandwidth. So imagining phone call after phone call of unhappy customer, we were able to change that by working on several stories and changing her metaphor.
So what do you mean by changing her metaphor?
Yeah, this was cool because it came up in tapping. So she says, I'm just a ticking time bomb. I just know I'm a ticking time bomb. And finally, I'm going to hang up and then I'm going to explode at my kids and I'm going to explode at my husband. Well, our bodies respond so strongly to images. In fact, pretty much everything that drives us is cellular images and memories. And so I said, what if you're not really a ticking time bomb? What if you're a beautiful timepiece? And just even as she thought of that change, and I said, she could see, we were on video Skype, and she could see the beautiful handcrafted clocks behind me, these antique clocks. I said, look at these clocks behind me. They tick. But they're this source of beauty. And so what if you're not about to tick like a time bomb, but you're just this timepiece and everything has an order and the minutes are going to go by and the hours are going to go by and there's a purpose to it and you're in sync and you've got a rhythm and you tell a story about the beauty of this path that you guys are on. And so now anytime she starts to feel like, I'm just, building up pressure, she'll change that. And so we even tapped into that. I'm a timepiece, not a time bomb. I'm a beautiful timepiece. I'm keeping time. It was beautiful.
And I guess, so one of the things I find interesting in what we've chatted about so far is, in one example, you're talking about this feeling of being in this circumstance and feeling powerless. Mm-hmm. In this example, we're in a circumstance where we're talking about the way that metaphorically she's describing what's going on and what the experience is. And in both of these cases, as we're doing this sort of work around something when we choke,
Right.
the conversation isn't about the expertise, the practical, the step by step, because oftentimes that's the thing that we're trying to change. And you used the term earlier. You said when someone gets the yips, and I don't know if for folks who don't spend a great deal of time around sports, they might not know exactly what that means. But when someone gets the yips, either in golfing or in baseball are the places that it's most known, like a pitcher who gets the yips, this is someone who is an expert, who is a professional, and all of a sudden they can no longer throw the ball from the mound to home plate. Like literally, they can't hit the broadside of the barn. That's what the yips are. And it's something that it's not mechanical, obviously, because they're expert at that. And so I find it interesting that the entry point has little or nothing to do with the mechanics of what is going on. And when we're trying to fix something, at least me, I'm super analytical. I'm like, okay, great. There's a problem. How do I fix it? Which I think makes it more frustrating, because if someone is struggling at a moment of execution, and if they then get in their head going, okay, how do I practically fix this? Is it a practice issue? Is it an execution issue? One, they're addressing the wrong problem. And I've at least found in my experience, we're getting too far inside of our own head, which is going to do the opposite. Instead of lessening the problem, it's going to complicate the problem, because in addition to what's going on, we now add this amazing layer of overthinking on top of trying to deal with what's in front of us.
Oh, absolutely. And there's this whole panic feeling of every single thing I've worked for is now going to crash down around me. And I've got this far because I'm powerful. And suddenly I'm powerless. And all achievers hate feeling powerless. So that's, pretty amazing sense of conflict.
So then how do we go in and directly address this sense of feeling powerless?
It helps, like I said, to go back and think of the first time, and then to really honor the power of releasing and letting go and using it all to become stronger, and using, you have to find that your own language, what words make you feel good, and use those as you consider letting go, getting really present, and knowing that is a very powerful state.
So what does that, practically look like? What's an example of a way of doing that, or what some phrases people would be tapping on, or how do they enter into that?
Yeah, let's think of an example that would apply. Can you think for more of our listeners? Because most of them don't have the yips.
Yeah, I think any setting in which someone is working on something in their work environment, and they're used to working on it on their own, and now they're either having to work in a team or they're having to present on something like that. I think that's a pretty common experience where people feel like they're coming up short.
Yeah, with that case, I would tap several rounds on literally, I hate feeling powerless, because that feeling trapped, I hate feeling trapped. I hate feeling powerless. I hate this out of control feeling. I want to do it my way. This is ridiculous. It's making me crazy. This is so frustrating. All of those words that are really high charged, because you're probably a fabulous high charged person, which makes you such an achiever. And so as you tap on those words and completely accept myself and all these emotions, these emotions are real, and I honor them. I honor all these emotions, and then start saying, I'm powerful in releasing and letting it go. I release the need to be in control. I'm so thankful that you just start asking yourself, what is great about this situation, and why do I feel so calm and confident?
And what I think is really interesting in what you're sharing there is oftentimes when, at least for me, when I feel powerless or I feel disempowered, the place I want to immediately push to is a place where I can feel powerful.
Yeah.
And oftentimes, that's where we'll see the roots of people, overreacting and being bullies is the way I'm going to feel powerful is I'm going to push you down below me instead of pulling myself up. And what you've described is just the opposite. It's almost like steering into the skid instead of running away from the sense of being powerless, going, okay, I am going to acknowledge and say, this is exactly what I'm feeling. Because if we're fighting that sense of powerlessness, then it's going to be impossible for us to figure out what's at the root of that. And our natural inclination is to run away from powerlessness and giving permission to go, okay, this is how I feel right now, and this really sucks, but this is exactly how I feel right now. And for me, one of the kind of mantras that runs through my head is fully articulated emotions are short-lived.
Yeah.
They're trying to give us information. And so the feeling of powerlessness is our system telling us how we're perceiving this circumstance. It's not saying that we don't have power in this circumstance, but because of whatever reason, a power dynamic, who's in the room, how we perceive ourselves, back to those fears that you started with, that's all the system is saying is we're in trouble because we don't feel like we have control right now. And those fears that you talked about, being enough and being lovable, those are all about having the space and being in control. Because if I'm not enough or I'm not lovable, that means that I don't have standing and I don't have space, which means that I don't have control. And emotionally, that feels super dangerous because we don't have control.
Yes. So what if being in control right now means that I can control my state? I can control my state.
Yeah.
So we'll tap through that. Well, then what state would I want? How about calm and confident? How about I see myself as a brilliant, radiant, beam of light right here that's untouchable by this conflict. So sure, change our image.
And I love that because it's really interesting if in a moment of clarity and calm and peace, if we think about the amount of things that we actually control in this world, it is so tiny. I mean, it's our emotional state and it's the choices and the responses that we make. And when we feel disempowered, it's because we're trying to change all of the stuff around us and we don't feel like we're able to do that. When what we're doing is, like you talked about, changing the state, is recognizing, okay, what do I actually have control over? Because if we think of the times that we're empowered, it doesn't mean that we have total control over the circumstance,
right?
But we have control over ourselves enough that no matter what sort of wackiness or unexpected thing comes at us, we can respond in kind. And it doesn't mean that we always get it right, and it doesn't mean we always get our way, but it's this sense of being comfortable inside of our own skin to respond to that and recognizing that when we're disempowered, the goal isn't for us to gain power. The goal is to gain power and control over where we are. And that's such a huge thing. And it's something we can actually do because that's the place that we have control.
And it's the place where new solutions come. Absolutely. You get out of this trapped feeling. When you feel trapped, you get that frustration and you think, oh, it's because I hate being in control, being out of control. And it will bounce you against one wall of that confined, as a metaphor, that confined area against one wall. You're angry, angry, angry. If you stay there long enough, you bounce against the other wall to a place of being depressed. And so that can happen within moments. That pattern can happen within months and repeat itself for years for people who feel trapped, let's say, in their whole life or in a career they hate, in a relationship that makes them miserable. So the faster we can learn to embrace the concept of, hey, I'm going to be a master of my state, that's going to be my superpower, then all those other situations that make us feel confined and trapped and disempowered, guys, they're like chains that fall off of us because we've become too big for them, for the confinement.
And I like what you said in there about what, as we do that, and I can't remember the exact phrase you said, but something about being able to be creative inside of that and finding new solutions. Because us being successful isn't simply about us demonstrating our expertise,
right?
But it's about using our expertise in a way that allows us to transform this moment into something that's useful for everybody involved. And that's not just simply us doing the thing that we know how to do and doing it really well, but having the space inside of that to go, oh my gosh, there's this really novel solution, or there's this great outcome that we can all have together that I didn't recognize before. And I just, I think of just physically, again, this idea of these metaphors, I think of the physical posture of being disempowered and the physical posture of being empowered. Like, as I just say those words sitting here, I can feel my chest transform, and the way that I hold myself, and that empowered state isn't just me standing tall, but there's this huge sense of openness that comes along with that allows me to recognize things that when I'm feeling disempowered, I'm just noticing how little I have versus how much is possible and is out there.
Oh man, it's so true. So when we get in situations, sometimes when we're in a social situation, we'll feel that constricting, like you said, like, oh, I'm feeling disempowered. I don't want to put myself out there. What are they thinking of me? Why do I have to, play all this role, whatever, networking or having to go to a company cocktail party or something where, yes, like you said, if you can take on a posture, act like you would if it was your party, they're at your house, you're happy that they're here, and you don't even have to change what you say, just your posture becomes open. You can stand there comfortably.
So when you have been working with folks in different settings and you're helping them to get past these moments of choke and the yips, what's a common mistake people make as they're trying to transform this part or these experiences or these moments?
Well, the first common one is to grind it out harder. So, push harder, muscle through it. So that, of course, creates greater and greater frustration. So that's the biggest mistake. And then thinking that it's permanent, leaving the present moment and projecting way down the future, the worst case scenario.
It's really interesting the way that we interpret and treat whatever we're experiencing, particularly if it's negative, as this all or nothing proposition.
Exactly.
If this goes wrong, then it's going to go wrong forever, and it's going to lead to worse and worse things as I go down this particular path.
Exactly. Forever. And like you said earlier, when we get these disempowered choices, we think option A or option B. Anytime you're facing a decision, you feel like you're choking because you don't know what choice to make. Oh my God, it's A or it's B. If A or B are both bad, there's almost always option C. You just don't see it. So as you relax and think win-win, it's usually possible.
And even when we're in a circumstance where we make a bad choice, there are very few bad choices that we make that really are that crippling eternally. That it's important that when we make bad choices that we take responsibility for the choices and we deal with the outcomes. But before the choice, when I find myself being really, really stuck, I find it really useful to be reminding myself that this is not an all or nothing proposition. This is not an eternal statement on my worth and value as a human being. And as silly as it is to say a phrase like that out loud, emotionally, I find my clients are experiencing that all of the time, that this is an eternal moral referendum on them and their eternal soul based on the choice that's in front of them and their performance in this moment. And constantly reminding ourselves to break out of that and see that, yes, it's important, and yes, I need to do right by myself and others, but it's also not that big thing.
Exactly. So let's change our main question from what's wrong with me? Why don't things go right for me? Why do I always screw things up? Because if that is your main question, as you know, our subconscious will always be trying to find the answers, and our awareness will be situations that can totally cause us to screw up, not work out, have things go badly. So it will help to start changing our main question, maybe with little questions like, wow, what little gains am I seeing today towards my goal? What evidence is there that today will be better than yesterday? Why am I starting to believe that tomorrow I'll be better than today? Because we lose hope. So hope just means that you have this sense that tomorrow can be better than today.
And I think that's really important, that not only do we turn the sense of, this is an all or nothing proposition, that we make success an all or nothing proposition as well. Like if I don't get all of it, then I am not successful. When in many cases, me taking a step forward not only might be significant and heroic in my life, but it also means that I'm closer. And oftentimes, when I feel like I'm failing, it's because I haven't achieved my goal yet, whatever the outcome is. And I've forgotten the steps between here or there. And so it becomes really easy to feel like a failure, which is going to breed more sense of anxiety because I haven't got there instantly. And how important it is for us to recognize these little steps are really important, and they do represent success, which makes it easier for us to keep moving forward.
Oh my gosh, that is one of the number one things that we have to learn. And that's true with championship teams versus people that struggle. And the ones who struggle are very outcome focused. What's the score? How did this turn out? And so as in business or in life, like you said, we have that goal in mind. Whereas if you will teach and reward and fall in love with the process, then you always have something to be celebrating, something to anchor that need for certainty to, because, it's the need for certainty that drives us, but it's the uncertainty that makes sports and other things exciting. So those are conflicting needs, and you're absolutely right. The more we can celebrate small steps. And I've realized I'm bad at that personally. I so often don't celebrate the small steps. And so it's helpful to have your little journal where you just ask, what 3 little wins did I have today? And let them be little and celebrate them.
I can feel, certainly a little bit internally, and I'm sure for others as well, when we say we need to celebrate little wins, that there's a part of us that's just saying, oh, you're just doing that to placate yourself so you feel good about yourself, and this is just an excuse not to look at things honestly. Mm-hmm. And because that part is driven by us wanting to be successful. And there's this natural fear that if I celebrate a small victory, then I'm going to be satisfied with the small victory. And I'm never going to move forward because I'm just going to be satisfied with this small little victory. And being able to recognize the fact that it's not a one or the other, that we're able to really embrace and celebrate these small victories and still hold the larger picture in mind. It's not celebrating the small victories placates us, but celebrating the small victories are recognizing our real success, which becomes the motivation, not the demotivation that we can fear it might be.
Oh, absolutely. You can't even say that enough. Please don't. If you could celebrate those steps that are moving you towards your goal, all the evidence shows that is what's needed for happiness. It's not the goal. It's the progress.
Yeah, that's right. And I think that's the kind of the big last overarching thing to all of this is, the goals that we have, or at least for me, the goals that I have, they're a tool. They're not the outcome. They're not what I'm about. But I've created these goals because it's going to keep me moving forward so that I can become who I want to be and have the life I want to have. But it's a tool that enables me to do that. It is not the definition of that thing. That my happiness can exist outside of that, and who I am exists outside of that. And so this is a playing field for me to execute who I am and move forward and be a contributing member to society and all around me, but it's not who I am. And that sense, like you said, that with my business, am constantly telling folks that I'm not building a business, I'm building a lifestyle. And my lifestyle is about who I am and how I exist in the world. And my business is a huge part of that. And I get great deals of happiness out of that work. And it's not and never has been who I am. And as long as I'm able to do that, the other thing it does is it takes that sense of pressure off to go back to those fears, enough and being lovable. If we make these things our identity, then we have to be acceptable for successful for other people to accept us or for us to accept ourselves. And by pushing away from that, it makes the process easier.
I just feel better here and having this conversation. I want everyone to know that it's so liberating. Ultimately, your success is about who you're becoming and who you're impacting and how you feel on that journey. I love that. I love that you're building a lifestyle. I'm going to start telling myself that.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for your time, Gina. I appreciate it.
I always love it. Thank you. God bless your listeners. They're awesome.
So lots of really great information there, and Gina's energy is just infectious. I love having conversations with her because she is so engaged and she loves what she does so much. If you'd like more information on Gina and the products she's created and the work that she does, all you need to do is go to tappingqandapodcast.com, click on the link for episode 242, or if you happen to be listening to this in a smartphone or in the Tapping Q&A app, all you need to do is go to the show notes and you'll see all of her contact information there. Gina has also been a guest a number of times in the past on the podcast, so in the show notes, I will include links to those past episodes as well, so you can listen to all of the great stuff that she has provided for our listeners over the years. Don't forget to take advantage of the 33% off pain relief miracle by going to tappingqanda.com/pain. Just click on the link, and there's a code there that'll help you get 33% off of your first order. Check out the archive. Every single podcast, every single tap along, every single video has been turned into just audio. It is all there, free of charge, over 300 audios waiting for you to consume, to get healthier, to use tapping more efficiently. Just go to tappingqandapodcast.com and you can download the app from there as well. If you have a question, if you have a comment, if you have a suggestion for a possible show in the future, this week alone I've gotten 3 really, really awesome suggestions. I would love to hear from you. If you just want to send me a knock-knock joke, I'd like that as well. All you need to do is go to gene@tappingqanda.com. That's spelled Gene. If you're listening on the app, click on the contact link. You can even leave me a voice message from the app. Or if you're on the website, just scroll up to the top. You will see a contact link up there. I love hearing from you. I read every single thing that you send in. It doesn't go to a VA. It doesn't go to an assistant. I get all of that stuff. If you haven't done so already, download the app, subscribe in iTunes, in Stitcher, and tune in the Google Music Play Store. We are still the #1 EFT podcast in the Google Music Play Store because we are still the only podcast in the Google Music Play Store, but we are #1 in Google, which is nice to say. For the Tapping Q&A podcast, this is Gene Montrestelli. I hope you have a great day, and I will talk to you real soon. Bye-bye. The Tapping Q&A podcast is copyright Gene Montrestelli, Tapping Q&A 2016. All views expressed by guests are those of the guests and not necessarily of Gene Montrestelli or Tapping Q&A.